Jesus offers the poor, the hungry, the grieving, the hated a blessing. Perhaps that sounds trivial to many of us, but in Jesus' day, material blessings, material things, were often seen as a sign of divine reward, sign of a blessing. And as Matt Taylor pointed out last week in our adult education hour, in the demographics of Jesus' world, more than 80% of the population lived at or below subsistence. The average life expectancy was between age 20 and 30. 80% of the population knew they were not blessed according to the dominant measures of their day. Jesus announces something different. In God's future, the tables will be turned. Actually, in God's present, the tables have already been turned, and God is in the process of working that reality into fruition. Blessed are the poor now. Blessed are the hungry now. Nadia Bolz-Weber says that it's dangerously easy to read the Beatitudes as, quote, Jesus' command for us to try real hard to be meeker, poorer, and mournier in order that we might be blessed in the eyes of God. To read these blessings as instructive for how we are supposed to live. The problem with this approach, she says, is that it makes blessings things that we can achieve by our virtue, contradicting the whole concept of blessing itself. Maybe, she writes, the Sermon on the Mount is all about Jesus' seemingly lavish blessing of the world around him, especially that which society doesn't seem to have much time for. People in pain. People who work for peace instead of profit. People who exercise mercy instead of vengeance. So maybe Jesus is actually just blessing people, especially the people who never seem to receive blessings otherwise. My inclination with the Beatitudes has often been to try to find the significance of those blessings. What is Jesus trying to convey, and what should I do as a result? But I realized this week that this perspective betrays the low significance that I have placed on Jesus' act of blessing itself. What if Nadia Bolz-Weber is right, and instead of trying to get poorer or mournier or more hated so we can get on God's favored side, we let the significance of God's declaration tip our world upside down? I was writing part of this sermon in a coffee shop over on Charles and Lafayette on Thursday when a lady who appeared to be homeless came into the coffee shop asking for money. She sat down at the table next to me. Blessed are the poor and hungry was literally on my laptop screen. The people next to me did what I normally do. They tried not to look at her, and when she asked for money, they whispered they didn't have any, and they looked away. Since I was still reading the Sermon on the Plain as admonitions to be better, I figured Jesus would be really ticked off if I looked away. I knew she was going to ask me for money, so instead of looking away, I looked right at her, right into her eyes. She looked weary or high, I couldn't tell, but also agitated. She let out a deep sigh. "Could you help me with some money for something to eat?" she asked. "My name is Andrew," I said. "What's yours?" "I'm Nancy," she said. I pulled out the money that my daughter would probably have tried to bum off me later. How long have you been out there?" I asked her. "Too long," she said. "I went through a terrible divorce from my husband, and he's kept the kids from me." "Well, that sounds really painful," I said. "How old are your kids?" 16 and 13, she said. "Well, when was the last time you got to see them?" I asked her. "Just before Christmas." She looked out the window into some distance. I couldn't read her thoughts. "My mother also died last year. It's been a year of losses." Now, I know that I sound real compassionate, don't I? But that's not what was coming up inside of me. On the insides, one judgment after another reared its head. Maybe she's got an addiction and that's why she can't see her kids, I thought. She's probably not telling me the whole story about her relationship with her kids. She's probably going to go spend that money on her next fix. The stories rose up within me faster than I could stop them. It's that worldview of judgment, where the poor are poor because it's their fault, where substance abuse represents a lack of character, resolve, or morality instead of one of the many ways that we human beings try to numb our pain. It's the worldview where I could never be poor or separated from my children or hungry because I'm better, plain and simple. I realized in that moment that to accept Jesus' benedictions requires a complete change in my worldview, a complete change within me, to see myself as vulnerable as anyone who is poor, to see my own losses as deep and real as those who are having trouble moving through theirs, to see myself as connected to and mutually responsible for my neighbors and them connected to me. A worldview that would take much more than me trying to get a little more meeker or poorer or mournier, but to accept my status in the world as fundamentally the same as Nancy's. A proposition that changes everything, personally and politically. Now, if you notice, Luke's version isn't the Sermon on the Mount. It's the Sermon on the Plain. The Sermon on the Mount comes from Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus goes up on the mountaintop to issue blessings, almost like principles for the disciples to follow. Blessed are the poor in spirit, notice, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. But in Luke's version, Jesus comes down the mountain, down from the spiritual heights to a more public place where the crowds can overhear what he's saying directly to his disciples. And here Jesus speaks in the more personal second person. Blessed are you who are poor. Blessed are you who are hungry. Blessed are you who weep now. It has me imagining Jesus before us saying today, blessed are you, Nancy, unemployed and waiting for work. And blessed are you, lady at Howard Street and MLK, crying out last week, I'm so close. Please, I'm so close. And blessed are you, gentlemen, selling a pair of socks for $3 to get something to eat. And blessed are you, neighbor around the corner from me, spending all your income in your early 20s taking care of your 10-year-old brother and paying for your mom's nursing home care. And blessed are you, grieving the loss of 2 of your siblings. And blessed are you, missing your mom who died last year. And you who got that diagnosis last week that cuts your life shorter than you wanted it. Blessed are you, grieving the death of your parent to COVID, and blessed are you, grieving the end of your marriage. And blessed are you, grieving that your life didn't become what you hoped it would be. And blessed are you, Jews in Texas, hated because of your faith. And blessed are you, black lives in Baltimore, Minneapolis, Cleveland, Louisville, killed because of your race. And blessed are you, queer people around the world, excluded and ridiculed and sometimes killed because of your freedom to love, or your uninhibited expression of your full self serves as public rejection of the patriarchy. Blessed are you, peace-loving Muslims at prayer. And blessed are you, people of Cuba, for refusing to want to be like Americans. And blessed are you who can't find well-paying work because English is your second language. And woe to you who are rich and keep yourselves insulated from the pain of the world. And woe to you who fill your belly while others go hungry. And woe to you insulating yourself with judgmental thoughts in a cafe on Charles and Lafayette from a person whose experience you have never known. You've already managed to distance yourself from a person who in God's world is your sister, your actual sister. I'd like to find a way to end the sermon with some way to soften the woes and enhance the blessing. In Black History Month, I thought about telling you the story of Fannie Lou Hamer, the daughter of sharecroppers in Mississippi, who endured severe beatings, forced sterilization, and other forms of brutal white supremacy to become one of the greatest civil rights leaders of her generation. Or Bessie Coleman, also the daughter of sharecroppers, who wanted to fly airplanes but couldn't because black women weren't allowed to fly airplanes in the U.S., so she went to France and became the first African-American woman to get a national and international pilot's license. It's important to know these stories of struggle, but to tell the stories of their triumphs today would be to risk sending a different message from that in the text. That Jesus blesses people because their talents are unseen, or to convey the idea that because these heroes overcame their obstacles, you can too. No, I think the message today is that God views all people as worthy of blessing because they are people. Not because of what they have done or what they will do. A reality so foreign to our ideas of merit or worthiness that we can scarcely even wrap our minds around it. God is working out a great reversal in the foundations of how we have managed to divide ourselves, to rank ourselves, to convey privilege on ourselves. God is reversing the foundations of how we see human need itself. The connections that could bind us together if we let them. For some, for many, it will be a day long awaited. For others, not so much. What will it mean for you?